Hi, Christoph here. I wanted to quickly go over this issue number 16 and the design request. It's fairly detailed, so I thought I'd just create this video real quick to better respond to it. Showcase how numerical settings like daily upload limit have their value changed. So by default, these designs were done for mobile primarily, and on mobile, the best thing for these is to rely on the default operating system inputs, especially for anything keyboard and scroll wheels. They're really good components, they're native, and they work really well. Now on desktop, we can do it a little bit differently. I think, let me see, for text inputs, we don't need anything. We can just show the number, you tap it, this cursor can show up, and you just edit it. Very basic. And on mobile, you tap it, and then you get the keyboard show up. Now that works for almost everything, usually at least in the browser. Date pickers, drop downs, they're a little bit flimsy or problematic. Sometimes you have to create your own. So I created a drop down here we can use. So if you're selecting from a list on desktop, we would have to show this custom drop down, but on mobile, ideally, we can just use the default OS component. And I do think this in the settings screen, let's say you pick your network or, mainnet. Where do I put this? Let's see here, network, mainnet, testnet, rec test. This is something where this drop-down would come in. Okay, next one. Reward listing enabled. I updated the text. That should be all set. Removed also disabled listening. Also done that. Screens are in here. If you've noticed, I did clean this up quite a bit. So everything onboarding related is in the proper sequence up here. I also added an explanation here. And for the logic of how these screens connect, I created, this is a clickable link here to this flow diagram. And that's where we can see how it all ties together. So just an update on that. I also included these developer options. So when you're on the landing screen, you can access developer options or just kind of an about page up here. Then you get information about the product with all relevant links. Then you can access developer option. It asks you to only do this if you are an active developer or have development experience. And then in here you have developer options with a link to documentation, enable developer mode, and whatever else needs to fit in here. And I assume if we make this also available later in the application, then if, let's say, you change the network, there would be some information that tells you, okay, now we need to re-download all the blocks, things like that, but we can figure that out. Back to this issue. Proxy settings. I was curious if we could just talk about on the call about what exactly those settings are, what we need there. I looked at it in the GUI, but I just wasn't sure exactly which ones to include. This might even be a subscreen based on how complex this gets. Storage options. This is the detail settings should have the identical layout to here, to this one here. So, and it's just the basic layout we have everywhere for desktops. You have your navigation bar at the top. You have your centered settings. There are different amounts of max width here. For text, it's a little bit wider. For these kind of narrow buttons, so they don't stretch all the way, it's a little bit more narrow. And then for some of the UI components, it's kind of in between. So you have these 3 different max widths with the standardized padding. But I can also mock it up if that's something that is helpful. Block steer and data deer within the storage detailed settings. I simply created these text-based inputs here. We can just show a short version of the currently selected location. And then I would expect that we also, when you click it, we use the operating system finder, navigation, file picker, ideally. So ideally, we don't need anything custom here. Let's see. When should it be enabled? Yes, yeah, I think that's true. This is one of the things where I did not come up with the perfect settings. I just put a few things in there that seemed like they would be accurate. But through our conversation, and you know a lot of these details better, you know, you can just let me know what you think is appropriate here, or we can discuss it in a call. Design systems, showcase designs in light and dark mode. So I'll just talk about a couple things here. So for the theme toggle button, using Bitcoin icons is perfect. So that's exactly what we should be doing. And I think the icon should be in the settings. So once you're in the application, I added the settings button here that will take you to the settings. I assume there will be various things in here. And theme is technically, you have three options. So you have use whatever the operating system has. So even if the operating system automatically adjusts, it gets dark, that night mode turns on, it should pick that up. Or you set a fixed option to either light or dark. I don't think theme is something that has, I know some applications do this, they expose it at all times, but I don't feel like this is something that users always need. But correct me if I'm wrong there. So I would just put it in this settings page. Updated the colors. You can see it here on the right hand side, neutral 9 and neutral 0. So that's updated. And then for the designs in light and dark mode. So this is something I haven't finished yet, but the way it should work. So this is pretty much dark mode. So if I select the content here, every frame has this display shape, which is standardized component. But if I just select the screen content, it shows all the colors used in whatever I have selected here on the right hand side. Now all of them should start with dark slash and have a majority will be neutral. So it should only use colors here in these dark ones. And then whatever, when we switch to the light mode, they're just the same respective ones here in light. So the way it really should work here, and I have a plugin here that does this. It's called lights. So I turn the lights on. It should switch everything over to the light mode colors. Now, as you can see here, I didn't perfectly set up the colors. That's why it doesn't exactly work. But that's kind of the logic here. Let me see if I can find one where this should work properly. So here you can see we only have light colors. I'm going to copy this one. I'll use this plugin, turn the lights off, and then all the colors that started with light were switched to dark. And you can easily see how any of those screens will look like in the different themes. Okay, so I have a task here, making sure that all the colors here always all use the proper dark mode colors, and I will do that. And then if you get the lights plugin, which you can get from Figma community, you can install that. You can also very easily check for yourself. But otherwise, it should be as easy as just if you see a dark neutral 9, that becomes a light neutral 9 here when switching the modes. So that's the logic there. I can also mock up everything. I just wanted to go over the logic again, but if you want me to mock up everything in all these different desktop, mobile, light, dark, also no problem. It's just going to get a little bit cluttered here. And I think that's kind of it. Hope I addressed everything. Like I said, I made some updates here. I reordered this. I added proper description. I added these developer options that we need to think through in detail. Same with the settings. And I believe this diagram here is also up to date. Anyways, so hope that was helpful. Let me know. Thanks.